Okay, here we have an example of factoring quadratic trinomials. Right, so we have 4x squared minus 4x minus 120. So the first thing we always look for, is there a term, a factor that is common to all three terms? Right, so they don't have an x in common, but the greatest common factor between 4, and 120 is going to be 4. Right, so we factor out that greatest common factor of 4, and then when we factor that out, we're left with what's in the parentheses. And remember, factoring out, think division. Right, so when we factor out a 4 from 4x squared, it becomes 1x squared. And then when the minus comes, we carry the minus down. When we factor out a 4 from the 4x, it becomes 1x. Carry the next minus down. And then when we factor out a 4 from the 120, we end up with 30. Right? 120 divided by 4 is 30. So we have 4 parentheses x squared minus x minus 30. Right, now we factor out the trinomial, the quadratic trinomial that is inside the parentheses. So we're going to carry down our 4. We notice that our lead coefficient, right, the x squared, and the coefficient of x squared is 1. Right, nothing coming before the x squared, so we don't have to do box method or any other method. Right, we could simply draw our two parentheses, place in our x's, and then we have to ask ourselves, what are two numbers that multiply together to give me negative 30, which is the third term, and those same two numbers have to add together to give me negative 1, which is the middle term. Right? We know it's 1 because there's nothing in front of the x. So factors of 30, right? 30 and 1, that if we added those or subtracted those, we won't get to 1. 2 and 15, if we added or subtracted those, we would not get to 1. But 6 and 5 would work. So we know 6 times 5 would give us negative, 6 times 5 would give us 30. One of these would have to be positive and one of these would have to be negative. And then we have to look over here to the negative 1, and the only way we could get negative 1 using 6 and 5, if we were to add them, would be a negative 6. Negative 6 times positive 5 gives me negative 30. Negative 6 plus positive 5 gives me negative 1. So then my final factored form will be x minus 6, and then x plus 5. So the final answer, 4 parentheses x minus 6, close parentheses, parentheses x plus 5, close parentheses.